Hello, and welcome back to Nat 1 Grung. Today we're going to be going over subclasses, what each one of them kind of does, and where I rank them within playing the game, at least how I like to play the game. This is all subjective, so do not take it as 100% truth. This is just how I like it for how I've played. So starting off, we discussed this a little bit in our prior video, but these are the subclasses that we have. We've got Barbarian, Bard, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Monk, Paladin, Ranger, Rogue, Sorcerer, Warlock, and Wizard. And then there is Artificer, and then the 2014 ones, Gunslinger, Monster Hunter, and Pugilist. I will be ranking the 2024 ones up here and then adding Artificer as well. First, we're going to talk about the Barbarian. Barbarian are very cool. They can go into a rage, which you can flavor however you would like. So most people will go with that they get very angry and they want to destroy things, and that's what gives them their strength to go through, like a typical barbarian that you would think of on that. But I sometimes like running them with a different emotion. So I have a hippo-esque character who is a barbarian who just loves everything, but in that way of love where it's like, I just want to squeeze your head off kind of thing. And so he goes over and he grapples everyone down to the ground, and that's how he uses his rage. So you can flavor these how you would like to flavor them as you're going through. Primarily, barbarians are going to be using their strength. They have the biggest hit point dice of all the classes. Their saving throws are strength and constitution. They have a couple skills that you can choose from. They have a lot of weapon masteries or weapon proficiencies, and they are not too big on using the armor proficiencies that they have here. Then they do have starting equipment as well, which all classes do. Then on here, so you get your first level traits. You gain all the traits that we just showed earlier. Then you gain the level 1 features, which are shown down here. So starting at level 1, you get Rage, which we talked about, Unarmored Defense, which basically means that you don't need to be wearing armor and you're still pretty hard to hit. Normally they calculate your armor class by 10 plus your dexterity modifier, but for unarmored defense, it's 10 plus your dexterity modifier plus your constitution. On here, it'll give you a little bit more AC on that, make you a little bit harder to hit. Or even if you get stabbed, it doesn't really matter because you're just so big and strong and your muscles. And then you do get some weapon masteries in there. Danger Sense is that you get advantage on your dexterity saving throws as long as you can see it. Then you get Reckless Attack, which you give yourself advantage, but that also means that everyone attacking you also gets advantage. Then you get your subclass, some Primal Knowledge, ASIs or feats at level 4, ability score improvements. You get to give yourself 2 to any one of your stats that you rolled, or you pick up a feat. At 5, you get to attack more, and you get to move a little bit faster. The main thing that you want to know about the Barbarian class is that they use their emotion to push them forward in battle. They come through, they are an upfront, hard to take down. They get resistances to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Right on down here, when they go into a rage, you get advantage on strength checks. You can't concentrate or cast spells, so it is not great for if you're multi-classing into a spellcaster. You get extra damage on your strikes. It is very heavily focused around that rage. So when I go to rank them, they can do a lot of damage, but that outside the battle mechanics, it doesn't really give you too much outside of battle. It does give you a couple things here and there where you could maybe get advantage on your intimidation checks. It isn't built fully into the Barbarian to be able to do much outside of combat. So for that, I have gone to, and I'm more of a role play character myself. Barbarians are fun when you're in combat, but you really have to work the character when you are going outside of combat. If you get into a situation where you have to figure out a puzzle, you really have to roll good, because there are not a lot of things for the Barbarian that allows them to get past those puzzles. You have bards, which are very much going into your charisma. Their primary ability is their charisma for it. They cast their spells through charisma. They do a lot of their things through their charisma. They have a D8 for their hit point die. They have dexterity and charisma for their saving throw proficiencies, and they have 3 of any skill for their skill proficiencies. They have simple weapons for their weapon proficiencies. You can pick 3 musical instruments for your tools. You get proficiency in light armor, and you get a couple of things for your starting equipment. What makes Bard fun is that they get Bardic Inspiration and their spell casting. And they are a full caster, so they're going to be able to get cantrips and a full amount of prepared spells. The Bardic Inspiration is one of the core things for the bards, that you get to use a bonus action and inspire one of your crew. And it starts off as a d6, and then it'll grow with you as you progress in levels in Bard. You get a number of them equal to your charisma modifier, and then once you use them all, they reset at a long rest. You get a bunch of spells, and the Bard spell list is one of the most fun that you can have. It has control, it has buffs, it has healing. There's not a lot of damage output you can do with a Bard unless you build them specifically for damage. But you could do whatever you would like with the spell casting. It is very diverse in what you can do with the spell casting, and that to me makes bards super fun. Then you get expertise, which doubles your proficiency score in a couple of skills that you already have proficiency in. Then you get jack of all trades, which allows you to use half your proficiency score to all of your skills, and then you get to get a subclass, ability score, font of inspiration. You get all your bardic inspiration back at a long or short rest. Counter charm allows people to, it's basically a defense against being charmed or frightened. Magical secrets, you get a spell from any of the spell lists. And superior inspiration, once you roll initiative, you get some of your bardic inspiration back. And then epic boon, which you get for all of your classes. Then you have words of creation, where you have power word heal and power word kill, and you can cast either spell and target a second creature if that creature is within 10 feet of the first creature. Bards are very fun, where they are good in combat, they are good outside of combat, they are very versatile within what they are doing. So for Bard, I would put them at a S tier, because they can do so much inside of combat, they can do so much outside of combat, that it is hard to not say they were one of the best classes in D&D. Now we're going to go right into Cleric. Their primary ability is their Wisdom. They have D8 for their hit point die, Wisdom and Charisma as their saving throw proficiencies. They have a couple of skill proficiencies that you can pick from. They use simple weapons as their weapon proficiencies. They have light and medium armor and shields as their armor training. And they have a couple of things that you can pick for their starting equipment. Clerics, they draw their spellcasting from their god, their religion. And depending on which god that you choose, it'll shape how you build your character and what subclasses that you pick for later on. It is a little bit funky that you pick your subclass later on in the leveling. You pick your god, and that is where your cleric draws their power from. So they start off with spellcasting Divine Order. Divine Order goes into, are you a frontline person with big ol' heavy armor on and a big ol' weapon, or are you more of a spellcaster, backline cleric? You get your Channel Divinity, which before you get your subclass is Turn Undead, and then you get one for healing someone, you get one for harming others. They are full spellcasters, so they have the cantrips and the full prepared spells list. Then you get your subclass, then your ASI. You get Seer Undead, which allows you to just blip out some undead that are near you. Then you have your subclass. Then you get Blessed Strikes, which is add some radiant damage to your strikes or cantrips. You add your Wisdom modifier, spellcasting modifier for it. And level 8, you get your ability score increase. You don't get much other than spells at level 9. Same with level 11, 13, and 15, and 18. Then you get Divine Intervention at level 10, which allows you to try to speak directly to your god and basically cast Wish through that. At 14, you get Improved Blessed Strikes. At 17, you get a subclass feature, and then at 20, you get Greater Divine Intervention. For Clerics, it is a very fun thing to roleplay that you are very close with your god and that you get your spells from god, and maybe you're going out and trying to convert people to your god. It lends itself to roleplay aspects. It doesn't give too much outside of combat as well, but with the spellcasting, you do inherently start to get more options with that. If I were to rank the Cleric class, I would put them probably at B, for a little bit of the same reason as the Barbarian, that it does have a little bit of outside of combat roleplay aspects, but you do have to dip into your spells to get the outside of combat. It does also inherently come with a little bit of backstory and lore of how to roleplay, but it doesn't lend itself as well as some other classes. Druids, their primary ability is Wisdom. They have a D8 for their hit point die. They use Intelligence and Wisdom as their saving throw proficiencies. They have a couple of skill proficiencies that you can pick from. They use simple weapons. They have a herbalism kit for their tool proficiencies, and they use light armor and shields. And then they do have a couple of things for the starting equipment. Druids belong to orders for their nature, so they are very much going into using magic for plants, animals, elements, healing, transforming, conjuring. They do have a lot of different ways that they can use and utilize their magic, but their main thing that they are going to be utilizing is their wild shape. Their wild shape, it can be changed with the subclasses, but before you get your subclasses, you can turn into a beast form, and you get to pick a beast that you've seen before and wild shape into that creature. You do have a couple of uses for it, and it all comes back at either at a short rest or a long rest. And as you gain classes, you get more uses of wild shape. And then they do have spell casting, so a full spellcaster. So they get the full prepared list, some cantrips. They're druidic, so that they have speak with animals, always prepared. Then their primal order, basically same thing as the cleric, where you can pick to be either an upfront person or a more backline person. You also get a companion with you, which is always very fun to have a little guy with you. You get to pick your subclass, and then there are a couple of ASIs that you'll be able to pick up. Then for level 5, you get Wild Resurgence, which allows you to create either your wild shape using spell slots or a spell slot using wild shape. Then you get Elemental Fury, which you get to pick one of these options, basically buffing up your frontline or your spells at level 15. Huge jump from level 7 to level 15. You get to do Improved Elemental Fury, which again just bumps up that frontline or backline spellcaster. And then once you hit level 18, you're able to cast spells through your beast form while you're wild shaped. Then at level 20, you get Archdruid, which does a couple of different things for you. Basically just making sure that you have wild shape always prepared, and also ups your longevity of your character. so that they can live longer, maybe even come into a later campaign if you decide to make a new one after you get to level 20. If you get to level 20, congratulations. Druids are, I'm going to put them in F. I've never been able to make a druid feel good for myself. They are very dependent on their wild shape. It feels like you go into, I created a character to transform into an animal. I created a character to transform someone else into an animal. I created a character to conjure a bunch of animals. It just feels like it's deflecting off my character too much. And so, for that reason, I'm going to put it in F. Personally, it is my least favorite class of D&D. Next one is Fighter. Fighter uses their strength or dexterity as their primary ability. They have a D10 for their hit point die. They have strength and constitution for their saving throws. They have a couple skill proficiencies. They use simple and martial weapons. They use light, medium, heavy, and shields for their armor. And then they have a couple of different things that you can pick up for their starting equipment. Fighters are one of the most bland classes of D&D. It is very easy to pick up. So I always recommend, if there's a new player, that they start off as a fighter. They can always dip into another multi-class later on. But if you're just looking at getting the core things of D&D in, I always start with fighter. When you're in combat in that like quick kind of thinking time, fighter is the easiest one to just be like, all right, I'm going to go up, I'm going to bonk him. All right, I'm going to bonk him again. I'm going to use action surge. I'm going to bonk him again and again. It lends itself very easily to new players, so I always recommend it for new players. But that does not mean that fighter is not a fun class to play. You do have your fighting style when you get your first level in fighter. You get second wind, which just helps you keep yourself up. It allows you to roll a d10 and add your constitution modifier to it and get some hit points back. Then you get some weapon mastery, which is a new thing in 2024, where each weapon does something a little bit differently. We touched on that on the first episode. Please go back and watch it if you missed it. Then you get your action surge, which you only use once, which allows you to add another action to your turn. So say you're a fighter and you've got 3 attacks in one turn. You can action surge and do 3 attacks again. Then you have Tactical Mind, which allows you to use your second wind as outside of combat. So for a skill check, and if you fail, you don't use your second wind. And then you pick your fighter subclass. You get an ASI. You get to attack more in your action. Then you get Tactical Shift, which allows you to move half your speed while you're using your second wind. You get Tactical Master, which you can replace a weapon mastery with either the push, sap, or slow property of the attack. You get Indomitable, which allows you to re-roll your saving throws if you do fail them. You get more attacks at level 11, so now you can attack 3 times per action. Then you get Studied Attacks, which if you miss your first attack, you get to attack again with advantage with your second attack. Then at level 20, you get 3 extra attacks. You're attacking 4 times per action, which is always very, very fun. For fighter, I would rank them probably at level C again. Right around mid-tier. It's very easy to pick up, but it does lack in flavor in the subclasses, in the abilities that they get. You do get a lot of ASIs for fighter, so you can pick up a bunch of feats to get that flavor in there. But base fighter is very bland. Just go out, hit something. It is very funny to think about a dude that just walks out and has like a wizard behind him that's casting spells, a druid next to him that's summoning a bunch of things, and he's like, I'm just gonna go bonk that dragon with the sword. That's my game plan. But even with that, I would still rank it as C. Then we get to monks. Monks are very fun. They're using dexterity and wisdom. They have a d8 for their hit point die. Their saving throw proficiency are strength and dexterity. They have a couple of different skill proficiencies. They have weapon proficiencies of simple and martial that have the light property. They have one type of tool proficiency, whether it be artisan tools or music instruments. They have no armor training, which we'll get to in a little bit. And they have a couple of different things they can pick up for their starting equipment. Monks' whole thing is that they have disciplined themselves so much that they have been able to rank up in how they strike. They study so hard on their discipline that they are getting extra abilities to be able to survive in this crazy world. Starting off, they have martial arts, which they use a lot of stuff for their unarmed strikes, so they're able to use a bonus action for their unarmed strike. They have simple weapons and martial weapons that have the light property. They also have martial arts dice, which replaces the base strength damage for an unarmed strike into a 1d6 roll. And they also have dexterous attacks, which replaces the strength modifier for those unarmed strikes and uses the dexterity modifier instead. And that can also be used for grapple, shove for those as well. Then they have unarmored defense, which means the same thing as the Barbarian. They are just so quick and nimble that they are hard to hit. So you add your dexterity and wisdom modifier to your armor class. Then they have Monk's Focus, which gives you a couple of focus points that you can use, and you can use them using Fury of Blows, Patient Defense, and Step of the Wind. Fury of Blows allows you to use 2 unarmed strikes as a bonus action rather than just the 1. Patient Defense allows you to disengage as a bonus action, and then you can use a focus point to disengage and dodge as a bonus action. And then Step of the Wind allows you to use that dash action as a bonus action, and then you can use a focus point to take the disengage and dash action on your turn, and your jump distance is also doubled during that turn. And monks like to go fast, so their unarmored movement, they increase their speed by 10 feet while not wearing armor or wielding a shield, and then you get bonuses as you go up in monk. They love going fast. Then you have Uncanny Metabolism, which when you roll initiative, you gain all your expended uses of focus points. When you do so, roll your martial arts die and regain a number of hit points equal to your monk level plus the number rolled. Once you use this feature, it comes back at a long rest. Deflect Attacks has been upgraded since the 2014 version, so now it's not just range attacks, but all attacks. So if someone goes to punch you, you can roll a d10 plus your dexterity modifier and monk level, and if you reduce the damage down to 0, you can use a focus point to redirect that attack right back at them. Then you get your subclass, you get your ASI, then you do Slow Fall, which reduces the damage you take from falling, equals to 5 times your monk level. Then you get to attack twice during your action at level 5, and you get Stunning Strike at level 5, which gives the target the stun condition until the start of your next turn, and their speed is halved, and the first attack against them has advantage. Then at level 6, you get Empowered Strikes, which makes your unarmed strikes deal force damage or its normal type of damage. Then you get Evasion, which allows you to negate all the damage done if you succeed on a dexterity saving throw. You get Acrobatic Movement, which allows you to move along vertical surfaces and across liquids without having to expend more movement. Then you get Heightened Focuses, which just gives you more options for your Fury of Blows, Patient Defense, and Step of the Wind. And then you get Self-Restoration, which once you can just use your own will to end one of the following conditions of charmed, frightened, or poisoned. Also, if you're not eating or drinking, it doesn't give you any exhaustion. Then you get Deflect Energy, which now you can deflect attacks of any damage type, not just the bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from earlier. Then you get Disciplined Survivor, which you get proficiency in all saving throws, and whenever you make a saving throw and fail, you can spend 1 focus point and re-roll it, but you must use the new roll. Then you also get Perfect Focus. When you roll initiative and don't use Uncanny Metabolism, you regain all expended focus points until you have 4 if you have 3 or fewer. And then you have Superior Defense, which you can spend 3 focus points to bolster your stealth against harm for 1 minute, or until you have the incapacitated condition. During that time, you have resistance to all damage except for force damage, and then you get a boon, and then you get your level 20 capstone of Body and Mind, and you have developed your body to be able to go to new heights, increasing your dexterity and wisdom scores by 4 to a maximum of 25. I would rank them at B, just because the new stuff that's come out for monks, going from the 2014 to the 2024, they have buffed the monks a good bit, and that has lended itself to more roleplay aspects, more combat aspects, and has really flavored the monk in a fun way that I really enjoy. Plus, going in and punching a whole bunch of people, not needing armor, not needing weapons, is very fun idea for me. So I have very much enjoyed playing monks when I have been able to do so. Whoa. I am going to have to cut it short here. I do apologize. It is getting pretty long for the video, so I'm going to split this into 2 parts. I do apologize for doing that to you, but next week we're going to go through and rank the classes and go over the rest of the classes, so please check that video out when it does come out. My schedule will be looking at posting on Wednesdays, so if you're looking at that, look at the video for Wednesday. Thank you very much, and please like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next week.